Hello, everybody, and welcome to Realty Success. So excited to have everybody join us today. We've got a really interesting show. We've got joining us Ashley Glinka and George Ray, and they're with a company called Critical Threat. And they're going to talk about being aware of your situation to stay safe as a realtor out in the field. So looking forward to that. We're going to go around the room and introduce everybody. We're going to start with our co-host, Aaron Brown. We're going to start with you. If you would please jump on board and introduce yourself to everybody.
Yes, I'm Aaron Brown. I'm a realtor based out of San Antonio, Texas. We're super excited to have you guys on the show today, and we've got a lot of fun questions for you. So can't wait to jump right in.
Thanks, Aaron. And we also have joining us today, Regina Brown, a realtor out of San Antonio. Regina, will you please come aboard and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Again, Regina from San Antonio, Texas. I specialize in the luxury market. So anyone looking to purchase or sell here, I would love to help you.
Great. Thanks so much, Regina. And I'm Brooke Bryant. I'm a realtor in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and I've been in real estate for about 13 years now. And I have been in situations where I've been very uncomfortable. Fortunately, I've never had an incident that has gotten out of hand, but I'm really interested in hearing what George and Ashley have to say. So, George, Ashley, if you'll introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your company, Critical Threat.
Hi, so I'm Ashley Glinka. I have over 15 years in the safety industry. Prior to now working with Critical Threat, I was Federal Air Marshal for almost 10 years, flying domestic and international missions. During that time, I also worked in our investigation unit, working at the Terrorist Screening Center with the White House, and I specialize in situational intelligence and behavior detection.
I'm George. I've spent about 30 years in military through DOD and with DHS, and I specialize in behavioral detection, investigations, and situational intelligence and surveillances.
Well, we really appreciate you all joining us today. And Aaron, Regina, I'm not sure if you've had situations where you've felt uncomfortable. I know that I have. Again, I've not had a situation get out of hand. But George, Ashley, in your experience, what sort of issues do realtors face as it pertains to their personal safety when they're out working in the field?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the greatest things is you're going into locations that you're not really familiar with all the time. You know, whether or not it's a commercial real estate and you're going in to show somebody, or if you're going there to sell and you're meeting with a client for the first time. These are all unknowns, and that's one of the key factors in safety and security is eliminating unknowns and becoming more familiar with the area or whatever it might be. So I think that's a huge problem in the real estate industry itself, is just there's a lot of unknowns that you guys have to deal with.
Absolutely.
And to play on to with that is that a lot of times, especially in today's age, social media is your best friend, and that's one of the greatest ways for you guys to market. But it also leads to a lot of people to be able to know what you're doing, see exactly where you are. If you're doing Facebook Lives, okay, are you alone in a house? So you're kind of giving that availability with your location, currently, how many people are around, just that sort of information too. So it makes it to where it's an opportunity for someone to see that, okay, this person's vulnerable, I can go here, I can do that. They know your face, they know your name, so they can get information very quickly.
What would be your advice in that situation? Because you're correct. That happens every day to us.
If you can pre-record things, make it seem like you're live when you're not there. I mean, I know it's not the same because it's not a Facebook Live. So in that sort of issue, like that's one thing that we do a lot just as a general safety tip for companies, for individuals. Like when you're posting on social media, yes, we want to be live in the moment. But if you don't have people around, if it's something where it's more of an opportunistic situation, to pre-record it, then post it as if you're live. Also, if you can always bring someone with you. I mean, I know in real estate, that's kind of one of the golden rules, but always having a second person there. So if you can kind of have people in that video, and then if you are doing something alone, just making sure that you really have gone through that checklist in your mind of safety stuff where, all right, you know, doors are locked, like someone knows where I am. I have that information out there. So is there anything you want to add to that one?
No, I think that's just a big point, is giving them as little information about what your circumstance is if you're alone. So if you're alone, you don't want to make it appear that you're alone. And if you can have somebody with you, then you want to make sure that they understand that you're not alone, that you have other people with you, that you're willing to show this house virtually or whatever it might be, or invite them to your location, but that you're not by yourself, that you're with other people, and that they don't have the anonymity that they want.
Like have food out on the counter, like you're doing an open house type thing, even if it's just food that you're going to take home. Like as you're going through, you can have that script of, oh, excuse me, I'm going to show this room real quick, and walk into the room where maybe there's no one there and you're talking to yourself, but it gives that realistic thing then of, oh, maybe there's someone else there, or maybe someone's there.
I like that.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, to try and not disclose your location through live, Facebook Live, that sort of thing. But when you are doing an open house, that's kind of the point, is to disclose your location and say that I'm there. So I think that situational awareness would be really important in a situation like that, like some things that we can take into account to be aware so that we don't find ourselves in a position of danger.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And please dissect it, be as harsh as you can. So last week I was showing a house, and it wasn't an open house. I was with a client, and whenever there are children present, I always lock the door behind us. There weren't any kids, and so it was just myself and a couple. We're walking through the house, and I heard a noise in the other room. So I went in, and a couple had come into the house, and they said they were driving by and they just wanted to check it out. Did I ask if they were with a realtor? They said no. So I let them know, and they didn't look very safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked them if they would mind waiting in the car outside until I was done showing, and then I would be happy to show them. So I finished up with my showing, and then I went outside and I called Aaron and I said, hey, here's the situation. Here's where I'm at. And it happens regularly, and we pick up clients that way, but it's just something seemed off. Something just seemed off. So I called him. So I went ahead, I talked to them outside, found out what the situation was, felt good about it, and I brought them in, and everything went well. But do you guys have any advice or counsel for maybe a safer way for me to have handled that situation?
I mean, I think you handled it perfectly. You removed them from the area, and you made them comfortable doing it. So the last thing you want to do is put them on the defense, right? So you don't want to be very blunt with them and tell them, hey, look, it's not your time. You need to go out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You were very polite about it. You told them it was your other client's turn to see the house. I'll talk to you later and be happy about it. Moved them into the car, and then you called somebody else to try to help yourself out in the event that you needed it. But one of the things that really caught my attention is you said you felt off with something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that people really need to realize that they can utilize, because understanding the physiological and psychological behaviors of somebody else
Mm-hmm.
is what prevents people from becoming injured. If you can see somebody's behaviors and you can separate yourself from them, then the further distance you put between yourself and a threat, the safer you are. So by you putting them in the car and then saying, we'll talk about it later, and then when you did talk to them, you were able to establish a better relationship with them, understood why they were there, how they got into the situation that they were in, and felt more comfortable, and then brought them into the house to see it. If you didn't feel comfortable still, you could make something up, say, hey, right now I don't have time to show the house, but here's my card, give me a call back. I'd be glad to show you the house tomorrow or the next day or whenever they're available. But putting them in a position where they feel like they're being taken care of and not just being brushed off will save you a lot of problems.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
And that kind of goes into the boundaries and really establish, like you did very well establishing your boundaries. And it's something we talk about a lot, is establishing boundaries and maintaining them. So like George was saying, maintain those boundaries by, if you still weren't comfortable after discussing them further, it's okay to say no.
Yes.
And no's a full sentence. Like you don't have to say anything else past that point, but you also, if you say like, no, I can't show this to you right now, and they seem like they're getting agitated and more defensive and you're there alone, like we want you to obviously be safe. So it's okay to say, here's my card, call me, I need to go, and like just walk to your car, get in your car and leave. Like you don't have to have that back and forth with them. Because I mean, okay, now they have their card, like they have your number. So if they're interested, they're going to call and you can set them up. Or if you don't feel comfortable still, you know what, I don't think I'm the perfect fit for you. Call this person, you know, like, and pass them off to someone else, another agency, you know, whatever it is kind of, but like, okay, you don't need to respond to them. And it's very hard to get comfortable with that mindset and that you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Everyone's not going to like you. You're not going to make them all happy all the time.
For sure.
And I mean, it's a very hard thing for me, like still. And so it's okay though. That's what I always tell people when we're working, like, it's okay to just say no and walk away.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. It's very good advice.
Yeah, I think as realtors, we focus on developing client relationships. And so very often it is hard to say no to clients, but we do have to really consider our safety and create an environment where everybody does feel safe. So I think that's great advice. Yeah, I've got another appointment. I'll be happy to show it to you tomorrow and create a situation that we are feeling safe in.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that we've heard a lot, like especially dealing with like warehouses and commercial real estate and that sort of thing where you're going out there alone or, you know, like it's in kind of middle of nowhere. So what can we do to help you feel safer with it?
Right.
What do you guys recommend as far as safety items that someone should carry?
Safety items. I mean, there are apps out there that can link phones together, right? So I'm not sure what the name of it is right now, but there's one where the person who's hosting the app can look at it and find out where their people are in real time. So it's like GPS tracking on your phone, but you can turn it off so that they're not tracking you all the time and stuff like that. So you still have your privacy, but while you're out showing a house or something like that, they can see your exact location. They know when you got there. They know when you left. There's also other apps out there that allow you to push a button. It calls 911 and it'll record everything that's happening in real time.
Oh, I like it.
So the person on the other end, it's recorded. It's saved in a cloud. They can download it, find out all that information and stuff. Body alarms. So just different alarms you can put, just pull the pin to like 140 decibels or something like that.
Right, like you can carry it on your purse or just right on your like belt loop and you just pull it out and it's tiny. But it has that high pitch alarm. I think flashlights
are good.
Always having a little flashlight and having
pepper spray and stuff. You have to wonder that everybody lives in different states with different rules, and pepper spray isn't allowed in some states, or it's only allowed at certain levels of strength. And then with that, if it's not strong enough, all you're doing is going to upset somebody. You don't really want to do that. So,
don't kick the beehive.
Right.
So pepper spray is something, and then obviously there's the larger thing would be the firearms. If the agency if your agency allows it, your state allows it, you have a concealed carry permit and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're comfortable with it and trained well enough with it, then that is an option, but it has to be a final option that you're going to do. You know, you never want to use a firearm as your first means of defense or anything like that.
There's the like tactical pens and stuff.
Yeah, there's pens that they're super strong. They have ridges on them and they're used for defending yourself like a knife, and they collect DNA. So if you scrape somebody with it, the pen will take a little bit of the skin off and it'll collect the DNA inside the pen. So law enforcement can do an investigation on it and stuff like that and find different things. But I mean, there's anything that you can do that you can take with you that makes you feel safer is better too. The best thing is just letting people know where you're at and having that second line of defense in case, say, if I don't call you in 5 minutes, call me or something.
Plan in place, like having that proactive plan of kind of, this is what happens. This is what I'm doing. You know it, like it's second nature to you because that's what you do. The people around you know it. You know, they should expect to hear in from you and check in. I mean, and I think like the flashlight, it can go everywhere with you. You get the high looms, it's blinding if you are in the evening or even during the daytime, if you're flashing someone's eyes. You just need to create that space because if something's going to get physical, that's one of the biggest things you want to be able to do is create space and get away from the situation. So if it gives you that extra second to get to the door and get out of the house, you know, like then that just did what it's supposed to, you know, it gave you space, you're safe, you're able to get away.
And all the tools that we're talking about stuff, the thing about them is they all require training. You know, I mean, if you're going to use a flashlight for defense, then you need to find out how you're going to do it. If you're going to use pepper spray, you don't want to spray yourself. You don't want to spray and step forward because then you're going to get the mist in your eyes. And then it's two people blinded and not just one.
So for training, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
For training on those things, where do you advise us to go to find out? Is that something that you guys provide?
We do have the ability to provide it, and we have outside companies that we work with that can provide it. Like we teach firearms. We have people that teach oleo resin capsicum, which is OC spray or pepper spray. And then we teach, it's called rapid assault tactics, which is defensive measures that was developed by Daniel Asanto, and he's one of Bruce Lee's descendants or proteges, but we teach that. And so, and it's real quick. It's not pretty. It's a violence of action. So speed, violence of action makes you safer. The faster you can react, the faster you can put violence on somebody else, the further they get away from you. So that's what rapid assault tactics does. And we teach that. We teach defensive measures. But we have the resources to be able to teach other people.
Yeah, when you're looking, like there's places that you can outreach to too, and finding the local places around you. Like you want to make sure you're talking to them and that you have that good relationship, that they have a background in using it in real life. Because a lot of times you'll get with self-defense stuff that's very complicated. And that's one thing that we like about rapid assault tactics, but where you're going to put this arm here, you're going to go here, you're going to go under, you're going to go over if they come here. And it's like, how am I going to remember all that, like in the heat of the moment? So you don't want something overly complex because you're probably not going to spend everyday training. So, I mean, it's just the reality. We're all busy. Like maybe you'll train once a week. That's great. Maybe it's once a month. So whatever you do, you want it to be something that you enjoy doing, that it's, you know, easy. And I mean, training's never easy, but like it's more simple. It's not that complex maneuvers, and it's applicable to real life. Because in reality, a fight's not pretty. It's not comfortable. You're not going to be like, oh, excuse me, I need to get this grip better. You know, like, excuse me, that guy. Like, in training, they didn't do that. They didn't hit me in the face when I would reach forward to grab. So, you know, just having an instructor that is honest about that, because even when we train people, we're like, this is how you can apply it. But, you know, like if you want to full out practice it, it's not going to be pretty. I mean, we still practice together, and there's times that I'm just like, I just want to bite you, because that's just instinctive nature when someone has you. And, you know, like, and it's like, it's not going to be pretty. Like, I know I'm not supposed to bite you. Like, that's not nice to do. Like, or I'm going to stomp on your foot with my heel. But like, those are the things that are okay to do in a fight. Like, there's no rules when you're fighting. Like,
and that's all great advice. I love what you say though, to try and not get in that situation where you are fighting. It's not pretty, and to put distance between yourself and that bad situation. You mentioned a flashlight. I've got one that's got strobing effect on it that disorients. But like you said, oh, hold on just a second. Let me look in my purse and find this flashlight so that I can stun you for a minute. So to buy yourself time and get yourself out of that situation, I think there's some, I think that is probably the ideal situation so that you don't get into a confrontation. I know my firm, we're very small. My husband and I, we have our own firm, but I've worked for larger firms, and they have protocols in place. Like you can call in if you're in an uncomfortable situation and say, I'm at this address and I need the red file, which alerts people in that office that you're in a situation that you're not comfortable or a dangerous situation. And then they have questions they ask so that they can assist you to help alert other people that you're in an unsafe situation and that they can get help to you. So I do like the idea of trying not to get to that point, because I've had some training with self-defense, but like you say, it's not something I do every day. So it would just not come naturally to me in the moment.
Yeah, it's a very perishable skill. No matter how many people train, if you stop training, your body just forgets it a little bit, and then it's not muscle memory anymore. So you have to figure out, your mind has to think about, what am I supposed to do next? Then it turns into a checklist, not second nature.
So let's say we're in a situation like Regina mentioned, where you're showing a home, someone unexpected comes in the home. You do exactly what Regina did, which was great. But they say, you know what, we're just going to stick around. I need to use the restroom. So you go show the house. I'm going to use the restroom. And they kind of don't follow your lead and leave, and they insist upon staying. What would you do in a situation like that?
I mean, that depends on what, for me, the advice I would give would be, you'd have to have some sort of policies or procedures set up within your organization. So your organization may say that, hey, look, you know what you're supposed to do is take the clients that you have and exit the house. The people that are in there already, they've already established the fact that they don't want to follow directions. They don't want to listen to you or whatever. So you take the people that need to be safe and you move them out of the situation. And then if your policy within your office says, call the local police and have them come over or whatever, to maybe just have them come over and they say they want to take a look inside the house, to make those people uncomfortable and make them want to leave. Or if it's just that you're supposed to move everybody out of the house and then wait for those people to leave or something. Having a plan in place is where it all starts. And that's figuring out, like, what is the procedure going to be, like how you were saying with the red file, right? Having that plan is what saves people. So if you have an idea of what you want to do, then you just move. The biggest thing is to move the people that need to be safe out of the situation.
So had a situation a week or two ago, a different situation, where there was a Karen in the neighborhood who blocked my client in. She pulled behind my client and blocked my client in. And she was really hostile. She was very hostile, very angry, very upset. And didn't really want to get the police involved. My clients they were new clients. And so I defragged the situation the best that I could. She was demanding certain things. And I asked her, I said, if you want to block someone in, you're welcome to block my vehicle in, which is over here, but please let my clients go. And how would you handle a situation like that?
I mean,
like, she didn't step out of her vehicle and she didn't show a firearm. She wasn't that kind of hostile, but she was just screaming and yelling and being obscene.
I mean, knowing that nobody wanted to call the police, I mean, that's the actual answer. I mean, getting somebody with the authority to have that person move, because she's on a public roadway, she's not not breaking laws, but she's causing a nuisance. So law enforcement could help her move on her way and stuff without any arrest being made or anything like that. But what you did by saying, look, you gave her something and you were like, hey, if you want to block a car in, that's fine. You can block that car in. That's fine. Do what you need to do. But then when she's asking, making all these demands, be like, I can't give you those demands. I can't give you that stuff. But if you move your vehicle, then I can see if I can find somebody who can. And then have them move the vehicle and then, deal with it after that vehicle is moved or whatever it might be. But the idea of her blocking the vehicle, the only way to remedy that would be having somebody that has the authority to have her move that vehicle. And that's about one of the only answers, other than doing what you did, which was give her other options.
Okay.
There are very few situations where I will put my car in a driveway. I try to park along the street unless it's an excessively long driveway. Then I try to position it where I can get out, and encourage my clients to do that if we're driving separately, to try and have that situational awareness. So I think that's probably key in a situation like that, right? Like, try not to put yourself in a position or your clients in a position where, if there's any way that you can avoid that getting blocked in.
Yeah, I mean, if you can know your area before you get there, if it's a roundabout driveway with 2 exits, then it'd be easier to pull in the driveway. If you don't, you definitely don't want to put yourself in a position where your only ingress and egress or exit and entry is blocked.
Right.
So if you can avoid that, like you were saying, that's a great idea. But knowing where you're going before you get there, whether or not it's through Google Maps, Google Earth, or whatever it might be, some sort of imagery, if you can look at it and figure out, what are your avenues of ingress or egress, and how do you approach the house? Is there an alleyway behind it that somebody could come up to the back of the house or something like that? Knowing that location before you get there will give you that advantage.
Yeah, and I think, like George said with that, even just being proactive and knowing your houses, like you guys naturally kind of know the feel of most neighborhoods that you're going into. So like knowing the crime stats, having seen the house and the property on that Google Maps and being able to look at it, having a plan in place in your mind for how am I going to get in and out of here. If it's in a dead location for cell phones, is it, a wooded location? What's around the building? What could be those risks? And kind of thinking of how you can mitigate that in your mind before you even start. So, is the area blocked in by trees? Is it a very dark wooded area? Is there no cell phone location there? Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to tell them that I'm going here. I should be out in 10 minutes, and kind of working that too.
Yeah, and then, I think if you go even further, you could create a good relationship with law enforcement in the area. If you have a relationship with the local precinct or whatever it might be, you have a good relationship with them. If it's going to one of those places like a warehouse where you're going to be by yourself, or one of those houses that's in the middle of nowhere that, it's going to be toward the evening or something, maybe it might get a little bit dark while you're showing and you need to leave or whatever, just reaching out to them and saying, hey, look, I'm going to be over here at this house showing it between these hours. Do you guys have anything that I need to know about? If there have been any crimes in that area at that time or whatever, creating that relationship with law enforcement could be a big help.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Super
That's
smart.
great. That proactive advice. When I first got into real estate, you do all sorts of things to try and get business going. And I worked at a model home in a new construction neighborhood, and they had great policies in place. Different people within the organization would stop by the model home periodically to check, make sure everything was okay. The foreman, different folks. So they had a plan in place to try and prevent situations that were unsafe from happening. So being proactive, I think that's great advice. And I don't know, Aaron, do you think it's more specific to women who feel vulnerable in real estate? Or have you found situations or that you feel unsafe in?
You guys had mentioned earlier that you locked the door. I don't know that I've ever locked a door, ever showing.
And see, I regularly, high percentage of the time I lock the door behind my clients.
Yeah, I guess I've never really thought about it. I always just figured if someone came in, I would make sure that they were detained. So I've just never thought about it.
What would you do?
I just assumed
Aaron?
I would win. And so,
Aaron's great. He just turns them into clients.
I
He's
love
like,
the confidence.
excellent.
yeah, I
Love
mean,
the
even
confidence.
something as
Cancellation, like
even as something as simple as locking a door, I've never even considered that. So I'm learning here, going, oh wow, there's so many things that I could be doing to keep my clients safer, of course. So I'm enjoying this, but yeah, I guess I've been a little cavalier in my showings up to this point.
Well, sometimes it's the clients that you're concerned about. If it's a client that you've not worked with, who they call you, they're driving by, they see your sign, they call you, they want to see the home. You're not working with a realtor. Hey, Regina, I just drove by your listing on Main Street. Can you meet me there at noon? How do you handle those situations? Regina, do you have a
Actually,
plan in
so
place for that?
Aaron and I are on a team. We run our own business together. And so he says he's cavalier, but he is not cavalier in any regard. When it comes to me, he's very, very protective. We always meet clients together. Well, like 99% of the time. And if we don't, he takes that other 1% out. And so if we both don't feel good about the client, then we don't work with them. And so there are people where he says, this can be a great transaction and I can help him. You will never show this person. You will never show this client. And so he's not cavalier at all when it comes to my safety. But we get a lot of signed calls, and we do get a lot of business that way. But we meet them together, and he's very business savvy and I'm a lot more emotional and feely. And I'm like, I just don't have a good gut feeling about that one. I just don't. And he's like, okay, we won't work with them. So he's like, you're the one that's going to be out showing. And if you don't feel safe, like we won't do it.
So George and Ashley, what's your take on go with your gut? Do you guys think going with your gut proves to be trustworthy?
I do, because going with your gut isn't really, it's not just a random feeling. So
It's actually science.
It's actually, there's science backed behind it.
Yes.
So in part of your middle brain is where all your files are kept, right? It's inside your hypothalamus and your limbic system and stuff like that. So inside that system is all the things you've ever learned in your life, whether or not you remember learning them or not, whether you've seen them or you've actually physically done them. So if a person remembers seeing a situation or they've been in a situation that makes them feel uneasy, that sixth sense, that gut feeling, the hair standing up on the back of your neck, all that is a reflection of something that they remember. It's just a subconscious thing, whether or not they remember seeing it on TV as a way a criminal can do something or something like that. So listening to your gut is very important. I mean, I would say that's probably one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah, that's your intuition. And in our society, and our culture in particular, women especially, we've been told, like, oh no, you have to be nice to everyone. No, it's okay if he pulls your hair, when you're in elementary school, like he just likes you, like you need to go give them a hug, even if you're like, I don't know, like that guy who's creeping on you with like an arm, and you're like, oh, okay, I have to be, I have to be nice, like, oh, excuse me, like being polite, like that's been toned down, but your gut's telling you like, he may seem like a nice guy. Everyone else thinks, that he's so nice, but like something in you is not like, I'm not comfortable. But we push it down, and then we find ourselves in those situations where it turns into a violent interaction. And so listening to that gut is so important. And that's one thing we always tell our clients is that, you really take it and listen to it. Maybe like you said, that first situation where you weren't comfortable talking more and kind of finding out the whole story, like, okay, it relaxed you a little bit, but your sense at first was, this isn't right. Like something just makes me, I'm not at ease. I'm uncomfortable. Like you trusted it. And then you find out more information, like it's just like in law enforcement, when you go from a hunch to probable cause, you're kind of going through all those steps of like, okay, let's see what other evidence is here.
Yeah. Like, and in that situation for me, it was, are you willing to go wait in the AC in your car? If they weren't, for me, that would have been like, cool, got you out of the door. If I needed to call the police and deadbolt them out, I could have. But where they were like, oh, that would be amazing. Would love for you to show us the house. Yeah, we're happy to wait. And then they went, I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So like they showed you by their reaction. And one thing we talk about a lot in our classes are like the physiological and the psychological like indicators of those behaviors that people are giving off, because words can lie. Like people can lie with their words, but their actions aren't going to lie. And a lot of those actions are those unconscious things, those subconscious that are occurring. And there's been studies back in the 80s where in New York, they took video just on like Fifth Avenue of people walking. And then they showed it to a bunch of inmates who were serving life terms. And they're like, okay, pick out who's the people that you would attack, like which people would be your victims. And they found through this study that every victim chosen was chosen by the same inmates. And they're like, so why did you pick these people? And it wasn't necessarily the people that, the scientists thought were going to be picked. And they were like, why were these choices? They're like, the way that they're walking, like the presentations, just those behavior indicators that we even give off. So, they had slumped shoulders, they were kind of scuffling their feet. At the time, it was like late 80s, so cell phones weren't a thing. But, like they looked distracted, like that look on their eyes, like they didn't have that confidence walking down the street. So just in the posturing, like they were like, they would be an easy target. You know, like I can tell that, you know, I'd be able to talk to them and just kind of like worm my way in. Like, so recognizing that we can give off those signals too, but then what signals are people wanting to do violence to? What are they getting off? You know, are they sweating? Are they looking you in the eye? What kind of, you know, clenched jaws? Like, what are they doing with their hands? Are they comfortable? You know, like all of that can give off triggers too.
Yeah. What are some of the signs that someone who's planning to do harm, what are some of the signs that they give off?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a lot of things, but some of the main things would be like some of the things they can't control would be heart rate. So when somebody's planning to do something nefarious, their heart rate goes up, even if they can control it. So they start getting that flushed look. They start staring off in the distance because they're looking at their target and they don't realize that they're focused on it. So they start looking at the target more like it's a victim. So they stare at it. They can get the pulsating vein in their neck or their forehead, which if you're in front of them and talking to them, you'll be able to see it. But if you're far away, you wouldn't. Clenching fists, profusely sweating, or it may be the opposite. They may avoid eye contact altogether. So a person who recognizes that they're giving those symbols or those signs, right? If I know that I'm going to victimize somebody and I know that I have a problem, I always stare at things or something, then I'm constantly going to be looking at them but looking away from them because I don't want them to know that I'm staring. Or if I know that I clench my fists when I'm doing something, so now the person's going to have their hands wide open because they don't want to clench their fists. And these are all things that they don't think about doing, that they don't think, but they subconsciously do.
Interesting.
So, and then even when you're talking about, like for our situational intelligence course, there's something it's called proxemics. And proxemics talks about not just the behavior of the individual who's going to cause harm, but the behavior of the individuals around that person. So if I'm going to be the one that's causing harm and I'm sitting here and I told Ashley that, you know what, there's a group of people in front of me and I'm going to do this, she's going to be giving off signs differently because I'm here. She may not want to look at me. She may not want to make eye contact with me. She may just shun me altogether. So when you make contact with her, she might jump or something like that. So you can look at the behaviors of the people around that individual in the group and find the person who's going to do something nefarious.
Mm-hmm.
God, this is so interesting.
Isn't it so interesting? And to know that your instincts, that your gut reaction is scientific. I never knew that.
I didn't know it was scientific either. I didn't know.
That's fascinating.
I was always just told I was way too sensitive.
Well, I mean, like, probably like an empath, like, you know, you read people, you're comfortable with it. So especially I think a lot of people get told they're sensitive because they listen to their guts a lot. And so you're in tune to your body. You're listening to yourself. So like, oh, you know, you're too sensitive. Ignore it. But like, you're listening to yourself. You're listening to your intuition. So that's normal. But yeah, I mean, I think a situation, like a real life situation we can bring that kind of brings all that together too, is one of our clients. She was traveling, like we worked with them for when they go out to conferences and stuff with travel risk management. So we had talked with her. And she went on this conference trip, realized she forgot something. So she had a rental car. She ran to the store to pick up what she needed. And she was in the parking lot and she said there was this guy. It was like afternoon. Because she watched 6 o'clock news. So it was like 3:30, 4 o'clock, you know, like early afternoon. But he was pacing in front of the store. And she's like, I was sitting in my car and, you know, you guys we tell people like, look around your environment when you get to a place, you know, before you exit your vehicle, that sort of thing. Like, just kind of know where you're going, since she was in this different location too. Like, she wasn't familiar with the store. So she's like, I looked and I just caught it. She goes, and I probably, before I would have just gone in the store, like whatever, you know, someone's pacing. She goes, but something seemed off. And he wasn't, she said, so I was like, what? And she's like, he wasn't looking at anything. He was just like dead stare, pacing by the doors. And she's like, I was like, it's not right. Like, I'm going somewhere else. She watched the 6 o'clock news. He robbed the store. And she's like, I was flipping through them at the hotel and I was like, I was there. She's like,
wow.
If I would have gone into the store, you know, like, would he have done it while I was there? Or, you know, like whenever. She goes, but it was just that intuition being right. If something's not right. You know, like these signals I saw that just kind of what's outside your norm. So, I mean, you guys know your clients, you know, the area that you're doing your work in, what's outside of the norm for that area. You know, if you do luxury real estate, then someone coming in and like a beat up truck and paint clothes and everything, maybe outside the norm. It may be the norm for that person. Maybe he has a lot of money and he just goes around like looking like that. That's fine. But like, okay, is that going to kind of send a sense a little more like, this doesn't seem right for this neighborhood, for my clientele, my usual, or if a client's suddenly acting totally different.
So what's more normal in this scenario is like the other day I was out showing and there was no cell reception. There was no signal. And so I drove in and I was early and there was no signal. So I drove back out to the nearest place I got signal and I texted my address and I said, hey, I'm with new clients. Here's where I'm at, but there's no signal. Please know that in 30 minutes, I mean, I should be out in 15. So here's where I'm at. So there are those kinds of situations where lots of acreage, you're in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere. I mean, they can't track your phone that I know of.
Yeah,
I mean,
because you don't have like network or anything. Yeah. I mean, I think for those situations, that the best plan is just kind of making sure that you have that preparation done beforehand, where you know someone knows where you're at, the time you're supposed to be there, and what time to check in with you. And if you don't hear from me by this time, like come check on me or call the police. You know, like send someone to that location.
I have to admit, I feel pretty safe out here. Until you guys sat down in front of me, I didn't realize that I had so many issues. I mean, this has all happened in the last week.
Yeah, you got story after story after story.
I didn't realize. I was like, I feel so. I tell people all the time, like, I'm in such a safe location. I love San Antonio.
Well, you know, one of the things that you can do whenever you go into a new area or a new situation is you create a baseline. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, if it's in San Antonio, it's hot outside. And I mean, this is going to be an exaggerated baseline, but, you know, it's hot outside. Everybody's wearing shorts and stuff. And one person walks by and they're wearing a big puffy coat parka and stuff like that. That automatically tells you that violates the baseline. Yeah. The baseline is people wearing shorts and T-shirts, walking around in the hot sun. This person went above the baseline and is standing out. So that's the person you need to make yourself aware of and say, why is this that way? So even if you're out at like one of those like far off places where you don't have cell reception or whatever, if they say they're coming with two people, right? There's two clients that are going to meet you. They show up, and normally when you meet two clients, they're together and they're like, so like, hey, nice to meet you and stuff like that. But if all of a sudden they get there and one client starts breaking off and going to do something different, and the other one's trying to distract you to do something else, then that's a violation of that baseline of what your norm is. Yeah. And then at that point, you should ask yourself whether or not it's a good violation of the baseline or a bad violation. So a good violation could be like, you know, somebody walks up and gives you $1 million. That's a good violation because it doesn't happen. But the bad violation is somebody coming by, they separate, and now you find out that this person's locking doors or something like that. So understanding a baseline of what your norm is in whatever that situation is will help protect yourself in other situations.
Well, Ashley, you mentioned earlier, you know, it used to be, oh, go give so-and-so a hug or, you know, just the be nice thing. And I think we are seeing a very positive shift away from that, where you don't have to always do that. You don't have to give the hugs. You don't have to be nice. You can put yourself in a situation where you feel safe and protected. And like I said earlier, I think realtors, we try to please and, you know, focus on that client relationship, but it's really important that we feel comfortable saying, no, I don't feel safe in this situation. And you mentioned having a policy in place. I think that would be great for companies to, you know, have role-playing scenarios where you go through some of these things so we do feel comfortable. Yeah. You're just more comfortable in a situation saying, yeah, no, I don't feel good about this, and remove yourself, remove your clients from that. I think, yeah, having a policy for your company is a great idea.
Yeah, and I think like you just hit the nail on the head right now, though, with the idea of you can create a policy or create a plan, But unless you practice that plan, it's doomed for failure. Because when you plan something, all it is the beginning place for things to go wrong. And that's why people do tabletop exercises and stuff like that, to find the gaps in those plans to make sure everything runs smoothly in the event of an emergency. So if you create a plan for your department or your agency or whatever it might be, you actually have to test that plan to make sure it works. So, and that goes for every level of whatever agency or whatever company you're working for. Schools have fire drills, because they know that if they just say, hey, look, they tell a bunch of kids, this is what's going to happen during a fire drill, and then all of a sudden the fire drill goes off or the fire alarm goes off, and those kids have never done it during a real situation, they're not going to be able to control them. So you have to run that plan before it fails.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that we do with our company is we'll help you set up these plans and kind of create what works best for you. Because especially, I mean, for anything in life, but in safety, like it's not one size fits all. That big company and that small company, they're going to have different needs based on your location, based on how many realtors you have. Like everything's going to have its own unique take on it, and everyone's going to feel comfortable with something different. So we kind of find your culture, where your comfort levels are, and then we build stuff customized out to you. And we work tabletops, we work exercises, we customize the situational intelligence training to what you need. And then we'll have everyone come and do those role plays and kind of work through, okay, how would you do this? Because in order to be safe, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like whether you're going to have defensive measures and fighting, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable to do that. Even in situational intelligence and understanding behaviors, boundaries, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because no is uncomfortable. It's not a comfortable word to be like, no, when someone asks you, can you take on this other task? I mean, I'm a people pleaser. I'm like, sure, let me add that to the list. And I'm over here like pulling out my hair and freaking out. But, like saying no is okay. And so getting those boundaries, like you're going to have to practice that in your office or somewhere that's, not the most like out there with that client, to be comfortable saying no to that client and kind of understanding the plan you have in place, because you don't want the first time to be the time that you need it. And you're like, wait, did I just go through? What did I do here? How did I answer that? What do I do after, I call? Like, what word do I use? So we want to make sure that it really is second nature to you.
Situational awareness is very underrated, especially amongst realtors. Very, very underrated for sure.
Well, it just seems such a fun, we're doing fun things. We're showing people beautiful homes, and it's a positive step in their life. And you don't want to bring into that this, the
reality of it.
The reality of it. You're meeting strangers in a vacant house or warehouse or whatever. Yeah, there's vulnerabilities there, and it's uncomfortable.
I mean,
but yeah, we do need to be aware.
One of the most like violent professions, and it's just, it's kind of crazy to think of it, because like I have an aunt that's a real estate agent, and like she's the most like fun-loving, like bubbly person, but you're like, with, like you said, meeting strangers in warehouses and like places with no stuff. Oh yeah, sure, no, we tell our kids not to like open the door when someone knocks on it if we don't know them, but we're like, oh sure, go in a house with this person who just called you, like right, and not think twice about it. So
we do a lot of things ourselves, like where it's our company. We go ahead and we have them send us their driver's license. We get a picture of it first. We check them, we vet them to see if they're pre-approved, pre-qualified. A lot of times we'll speak with the lender in advance, and it is a lot of work and it does turn people off. But if they're not comfortable sharing their info, I am totally okay with that, because it's my safety too.
That's a very smart practice.
I'm out an hour out of the zone if I need help, So there's not company policies in place for us, except in our own little, like, what are we safe? What do we feel safe with? So.
Right. I think that's a great policy or procedure that you guys are doing, where you're getting as much information about the unknown, which is your client, before you actually meet with them. Like I said a little bit earlier, the more you can learn about the unknown, the safer it'll make you. You know,
Mhm.
whether or not it's the location you're going to, the client you're working with, the more you can understand about what the unknown holds for you, the better off you'll be.
I like that.
I used to be very uncomfortable asking for that driver's license when I first was in real estate. And like you say, Regina, I got to a point where I thought, well, if my safety is not a concern to them, it's just not a client that I want to work with.
No, but they have our information. They have
Right, yeah.
photo ID of us. They
Mhm.
can contact us. I mean, they have everything. They have our license numbers, our brokerage information. Like they have that on us. So to me,
Right.
it should be reciprocal. And if they're not comfortable with it, I'm completely fine not seeing them. Totally. Because I don't want to have to use my gun on them. You know, I don't want to go to jail till I'm proven innocent, you know, like
Yeah, nobody wants to be in the bad situation. And I think that's such a smart approach to it, the situational awareness to try and keep you and your clients out of those dangerous situations. So one situation I had that had nothing to do with the client or another person, I was showing a vacant property, and I work with investors, so I show a lot of distressed properties. And I was trying to get in the door, the lock wasn't working real well, and my client wasn't there yet, but I was trying to open it up, and a stray, really big, growly dog came upon me, and I was so scared. Luckily, I got into the house in time. The dog went away and nothing bad happened. But I thought, of all the people, the scary people, it's going to be a dog who does me in.
oh no.
But so you just never know what you're going to run into. So you really need to be aware.
I would
Yeah.
assume for dogs, maybe mace is the best solution.
Again, hold on, dog. Let me get to the bottom of my purse and
And
get
you're
the
like
mace
person
and
in
get.
the car that, yeah.
Yes, I wasn't. I was not practicing situational awareness. I was out in the country and should have expected a stray dog to wander up on me, but I did not. I did not.
Have spare steak and throw it in the other direction. Like those things.
Good plan.
What
good
works on the
plan.
movies?
Right.
Hey, a quick question for you. For those who don't maybe have as much spiny sense, or maybe you're not as in tune, hypothetically, with their gut feeling, how would you develop that a little bit?
Games. Yeah, so this is what I used to teach when I would work with especially like moms and families and stuff. There are so many different games that raise your attention level. It raises your awareness. Different stuff to develop language so that you can describe in more detail. So that sort of stuff you can do on a daily basis. And I teach them towards kids. So as I describe some of these, it's probably gonna be a little like, that's very Disney-fied, like magical. But making it fun. Because I mean, that's always one of my things is that you want stuff to be enjoyable. So you can do kind of like I Spy, but in more detail. You can do it by yourself while you're driving on the commute and into, from work. Everyone has those moments where you're driving and you're like, how did I get home? Like you're just, you're in that zone. So getting yourself out of that zone is very important. So give yourself a challenge. How many different license plates can you find on your way to work from different states? How many license plates start with the letter A on the way to work? And just kind of mentally keep track, because then you're looking at the road where we want you to look. But, like you're counting and kind of keeping track and you're aware. So that's one sort of thing. Another thing, if you are with other people, you can do the challenges at dinner. We do this with our kids, but we'll be in a restaurant playing I Spy, but instead of doing like the obvious type stuff, we'll kind of be like, what color car did we park next to in the parking lot? Without turning, how many people are sitting behind you without turning? Like how many? So using, because there's stuff you can use, like using the windows to see reflections behind you. How is your recall from your memory, from where you parked in a parking lot to when you walked in? Did you take in the awareness of the room? Do you want to do any other games?
There's like there's a game called 5 Steps.
Oh yeah, 5 steps.
Where you walk in, like you could be in your house anywhere, and then you take 5 steps and you notice 5 items. So you take 5 more steps, you have to notice or find 5 different items. And then you take 5 more steps, find 5 more items that weren't those previous 10. So you're finding different items every 5 steps you take. And if you do it in a small room, pretty soon, you're looking for things that don't really exist anywhere unless you really focus on looking at them. And then there's a game called Kim's Games. It was a game that was developed it was a 1900s book by Rudyard Kipling. And he was trying to create a spy out of this girl. And so what he did was he was trying to improve her cognitive memory. So he took a box and he put inside the box, he put like 5 items and he covered up the box. And then he would sit down and put the box in front of her. He would pull the cover off, give her like 30 seconds to look at it, and then cover it back up. And then she would have to sketch out those things that were in those 5 items, the way they were laid out in the box as they would appear on paper. So right now, even like U.S. Army Sniper School, they use that same type of training right now for snipers. They'll put them in a sniper hide, which is just like a dugout area on top of a hill where they're looking over a field, and they'll not let them look at it. They'll turn them around. They'll look at the field. They'll find something. They'll make them turn back around, and then they have to do a sector sketch, which is draw that entire field with as much detail as they can. So if there's a cow in the middle of the field, they have to draw the cow. If there's a water tower, they have to draw the water tower, and they need to draw it as far as distances and everything. So that way they can learn that when they're when they see something, they can analyze it right away and find out what's going on. So the Kim's game is probably one of the most effective games for being able to improve that instant recall and put it in your memory.
I mean,
That's such a great takeaway for a realtor to walk into a property and assess, okay, how many exits are in this home? How many ways can somebody come in? How many ways can I get out? How many ways can I get out of the driveway? That's a great takeaway for a realtor to go into a property and be situationally aware of who can get in, how can I get out to keep myself safe. That's a great takeaway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those things too, where if you've been to the property before, all of the games using attention, especially like Kim's, where you're looking at exactly how something is laid out. But if you've been to the property before and then you go back there to show, and wait, that window's open, that door that was locked isn't locked. Something looks different in the yard. Like you'll notice those little things, and you can either ask, your seller, like, hey, what's up with this? Or it's something that you have in the back of your mind, and now that baseline's been changed. So as you're going into the property, you can be aware of anything that you need to know, whether it's, the air conditioner broke and they have the windows open, but just kind of something that raises a red flag of this is different, because every time your baseline changes, it's not a danger. Like it's not always something bad. It's just different.
Right. Something our clients may need to be made aware of, something like that.
It's something that raises a flag, and you need to find out now, okay, is this going to do me harm? Is it, just a change that occurred that happened, for the better, for the worse? Like, what is it? So having that takeaway. And Kim's is something you can do on your own, just with a box or even a tabletop. Do it in the office. It can be a fun office game during meetings. Like we always tell people, like, you should talk at least once a month about safety. So, like doing a game once a month type thing is great for the office, like of just safety.
I think that is absolutely great. I think every real estate office needs to do that. One of their monthly, they typically have weekly meetings once a month, talk about safety. So I can't believe how fast this hour has gone and how much I've learned. And it's been fascinating, the psychology of feeling safe or unsafe and being aware of that. And we really appreciate you sharing that with us. So Ashley, you said that you've got some information that you can put together to help realtors, real estate offices be more aware of safety issues.
Yeah. So we'll have a downloadable for you guys that will include some like monthly topics that you can talk about, and I'll make sure to throw in. We have a Kim's game like diagram that you can use for that meeting if you want. So
great. And we'll put that in the show notes. So as we wrap up, we'll just go around the room and if everyone can tell us where our audience can find you, starting with you guys, Ashley and George. Thank you again for being here. And where can our audience go to find more about critical threat?
Thanks for having us. We are able to be found at www.criticalthreat.us, or Ashley Glinka. I'm on LinkedIn. And
I'm George Ray on LinkedIn.
so you can find us on there, and feel free to reach out with any questions. We're always happy to chat.
Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you being here and helping realtors, giving us points to stay safer out in the field. It's so important. And Regina, if you can tell everyone where we can find you.
ReginaBRealty@gmail.com and Regina B Realty on any social platform.
Thanks for the great stories today.
I kind of feel bad that I had so many, but I appreciate the wisdom and insight. I do. Thank you so much.
Hey, and you're still here, so that's great. And Aaron, where can our audience find you?
You can find me over at Realty Success Hub online and at Ask Aaron Brown just on any social media. So.
Well, great. And I'm Brooke Bryant. I'm a realtor in and around the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and you can find me on social media at Ask Brooke Bryant. And this has been a great topic, and we appreciate everybody being here. We hope you all stay safe, and we'll see you guys here again next week. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
appreciate
you so much. That was so
Thank
insightful.
you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.